three. There you go. So, what was the primary race of doctors who grew up in down Bennett, Alexanderstown? So she said they were black, right? And that's
Yeah,
what
she
happened
said,
with the daughter and saying like, oh,
yeah,
this white guy cannot be a doctor because he's white. Yeah.
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 And then she moved from Washington, D.C. to Jacksonville, Florida, I think, right?
Yeah, and that's why she thought that there couldn't be a white doctor, right?
Yeah. And I think in D.C. at the time, there was 50 to 60% of the population was Black or African American.
hmm And
Okay, does Alexander care about the bottom line? Um, she said she doesn't. She highlighted that she is not, she was a lawyer and her primary reason was contracting so businesses don't make these mistakes. And she gave the example of that one company that had to pay $15 million of damage because they were um, I don't remember, but they were anyways. She had to pay $15 million, and she said that could have been so easily avoided if they had just focused on her 3 points. And I think that was it. What do you
okay.
think about too?
Yeah, I heard something similar, so that's why I
Okay.
prefer you talking about that one because then I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I wasn't. I think she really just said it doesn't matter what, as long as businesses follow her 3 points, there should be no bottom line.
And the three principles that she said is that number one is to figure out the messages that you could have at your workplace that they cause a problem and deal with them. The second is to stop being so judgmental, meaning that being different does not mean being less. And number three, I mean, I divided it in two because the first thing she said is do what your parents told you to do.
Mhm.
But what if your parents were not as good as you think, right? So
That's true,
then
yeah.
she said use the golden rule, which I agree with.
Yeah, and then that is just treat others how you would like to be treated.
Exactly.
And I agree with her that those principles were really simple and things that you should already be doing, even though you're not.
Yeah.
And I really liked her example of her one case that she said about the homosexuals. And he's like, well, you shouldn't even be caring. It's not what your job is to do. And I
Exactly.
think it's interesting that he even agreed with her and made himself think.
Yeah.
And
And I think that's it, right?
yeah, and I just thought it was interesting that her career was law and that she is doing this kind of work when I didn't think that really, well, I guess it does fall into that career, but it's not something you would usually think falls into that line of work.
Yeah, now she's more like a chancellor, there's
Yeah,
giving people advice and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it's curious, but I think it's good, because she has experience in the law
yeah.
side, so she knows the consequences of doing things wrong.
Hmm.
So she could advise about how to do things well.
Yes.
Do you want to add anything else?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so I'll stop the recording.